Once the ruling members of the CFR have decided that the US government should adopt a particular policy, the very substantial research facilities of CFR are put to work to develop arguments, intellectual and emotional, to support the new policy and to confound and discredit, intellectually and politically, any opposition. That is a quote by US Navy Judge Advocate General Admiral Chester Ward, a longtime CFR member. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Perception Correction and part 2 of our Council on Foreign Relations series. Go check out part 1 for a proper introduction. And better yet, go check out the videos on the channel about these other organizations that all connect together throughout history and are the reason why we're now doing videos about the CFR. In this video, we're going to check out CFR members in government and their influence on presidents, policy, and events. Please like, share, subscribe, follow, all the good things. It really helps me out. If you don't like, share, subscribe, or follow, what you're telling me is that you, pretty much, worship Satan. Hit the intro!
I got flavor. Motherfucker, I'm ill.
Alright, no small talk. Let's just start listing presidents, followed by spitting facts in relation to the CFR and said president. Dwight D. Eisenhower. The Eisenhower admin was filled with top dogs from the Dulles, Rockefeller, Dewey, Luce-dominated New York network, as well as the upper echelon of peeps from industry and the Pentagon. Wall Street lawyer Herbert Braunwell, Council on Foreign Relations, was named Attorney General after running Eisenhower's campaign. General Motors CEO Charles Wilson, Council on Foreign Relations, who attended the Paris Peace Conference with House and Wilson, was tapped to run the Defense Department. Chase Manhattan Chairman and former diplomat John McCloy became National Security Advisor. McCloy has been called the very personification of the power elite. More CFR members filled lower-ranking positions in the admin. Eisenhower, dubbed the Golfer-in-Chief, was regularly accompanied by CEOs from General Electric, Coca-Cola, Reynolds Tobacco, and Young & Rubicam on his twice-a-week golf rounds at Burning Tree Country Golf Club in Bethesda. Special Advisor John Kenneth Galbraith to JFK is quoted as saying, "Those of us who had worked for the Kennedy election were tolerated in the government for that reason and had a say, but foreign policy was still with the CFR's people." John F. Kennedy. In the 1960 election, JFK upset Republican Richard Nixon, whose top advisors came from the Council on Foreign Relations and Skull and Bones. In the days leading up to JFK's inauguration, the press was filled with stories about all the fresh new faces in Washington. In reality, many of the Kennedy appointments had closer ties to the Dulles' old guard than the new president. Among them was McGeorge Bundy, Skull and Bones, CFR, and National Security Advisor to JFK and LBJ. The Dulles and Bundy family ties had been fortified when Dulles rescued CIA officer William Bundy, the brother of McGeorge Bundy, also Skull and Bones and future CFR director, from Joe McCarthy's pyre. McGeorge Bundy considered Allen Dulles an uncle and had a warm correspondence up until the end of Dulles' life. McGeorge Bundy, a Harvard dean, was appointed National Security Advisor as earlier mentioned, and William Bundy was on his way to Kennedy's Defense Department. This meant that the CIA director had eyes and ears in two of the most important command posts in the Kennedy admin. I've already written off more than 1 billion people. These people are in places in Africa, Asia, Latin America. We can't save them. The population crisis and the food supply question dictate that we should not even try. It's a waste of time. Maxwell Taylor, CFR member, stated in a 1981 interview.
That's not funny, you sick fuck.
JFK was given a list of 82 people to help staff his State Department. 63 of those belonged to the CFR. Immediately after his election, Kennedy was faced with a confrontation in Laos. In a foretaste of Vietnam, this conflict pitted the Pathet Lao communists against CIA-backed General Fumi Nosayan. Upon entering office, CFR members Secretary of Defense Robert McNamara and Walt Rastow, head of the State Department's Policy Planning Council, vocally supported the use of troops. Kennedy declined. Kennedy versus the steel industry is a situation we won't go into depth here, but let me sum it up for you. Chairman of U.S. Steel Robert Blau met with JFK to tell him that he was going to announce a 3.5% increase of pricing. This would break a recent pact created by labor, industry, and government. JFK saw Blau as a backstabber. Luce's Fortune magazine touted him as a capitalist hero. Of course. Roger Blau can be connected to Allen Dulles via both of their memberships in the CFR. Other CFR/Dulles men around Kennedy include General Lyman Lemnitzer, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, was inherited for Eisenhower and is responsible for Operation Sunrise and Operation Northwoods. Secretary of State Dean Rusk was a CFR member alongside the Dulles brothers. The transition period of Eisenhower to JFK involved numerous incidents of insubordination by Allen Dulles, but those details I'll put in my back pocket for the eventual CIA or Allen Dulles video on the channel. Lyndon B. Johnson. During the Johnson years, the president was surrounded by advisors collectively known as his wise men. All were members of the CFR. These included John McCloy, CFR, and advisor to IG Farben, Avril Harriman, Skull and Bones, CFR, executive of Union Pacific Railroad, Dean Rusk, CFR, 54th U.S. Secretary of State, William Bundy, Skull and Bones, CFR Director, Dean Acheson, Skull and Bones, CFR, George F. Kennan, CFR for 59 years, co-founder of the Bilderberg Group, and Robert A. Lovett, Skull and Bones, Secretary of Defense from 1951 into 1953, CFR and Bilderberg member. Nixon. Nixon became Dulles' mouthpiece in Congress from 1947 to 1950. During this time, Harry Truman was president. Truman was never fully in the pocket of the global cult and as a result only served one term as president. Nixon signed as a CFR member in 1961 and then resigned in 1965 once it became a campaign issue. Once Nixon became president, he was a full-fledged puppet of the CFR. Nixon's administration placed at least 115 CFR members in key positions in the executive branch. The vast majority of these men were still around when the Ford administration began. Nixon ignored the Republican platform he was elected on and proceeded to execute foreign policy as per the CFR once in office. Nixon's CFR foreign policy included disarmament without inspections, increased trade on credit with communists, abandonment of our anti-communist allies, détente with the Soviet Union and Red China are all programs of the CFR. Ronald Reagan. I think there is an elite in this country, and they are the very ones who run an elitist government. They want a government by a handful of people because they don't believe the people themselves can run their lives. Are we going to have an elitist government that makes decisions for people's lives? Or are we going to believe, as we have for many decades, that the people can make the decisions for themselves? A quote by Ronald Reagan from 1980 in relation to President Carter being surrounded by CFR members and trilateralists. Reagan had previously attacked the 19 trilaterals in the Carter administration and vowed to investigate the group if elected. Reagan, a former spokesman for General Electric, stocked his administrations with current and former members of globalist groups, the very people he had criticized. Active CFR and trilateralist members such as Caspar Weinberger, Anne Armstrong, David Packard, George H. Weyerhaeuser, Bill Brock, and William A. Hewitt helped manage Reagan's campaign. Additionally, Reagan's 59-member transition team responsible for selection and screening of candidates for major governmental posts consisted of 28 CFR members, 10 Bilderbergers, and 10 trilateralists. Among them featured such outsiders as Henry Kissinger, Alexander Haig, George Shultz, former Secretary of Treasury under Nixon, Donald Rumsfeld, and Alan Greenspan.
Japan had become a major power in the world, and that we culturally had very few relations with them. It seemed to me that was a mistake. And so I tried first to persuade the Bilderberg group, which you've been to and know,
yes,
to include Japan. But they turned that down. They thought the relation with Europe was important and stick to it. So when they turned it down, a group of us started the Trilateral Commission.
This is you in 1995, attending the meeting with Henry Kissinger with President Jiang Zemin.
Yes, that's a nice one. I'd forgotten about that.
Reagan had previously roasted Bush's membership in the Trilateral Commission and CFR.
Boom. Roasted.
And vowed to not give Bush a spot in his government if elected. Long story short, Reagan made Bush his VP and lined his government with CFR, Trilateral Commission, and Bilderberg members. Upon Reagan making Bush his VP, criticism of the Council on Foreign Relations just happened to stop.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
George H.W. Bush.
We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order, a world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations. When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order, an order in which a credible United Nations can use its peacekeeping role to fulfill the promise and vision of the UN's founders.
A CFR member himself, as well as a former CIA director and vice president, George H.W. had 387 in his admin that were a combination of Council on Foreign Relations or Trilateral Commission members.
You think I'm stupid?
Yes.
We're going to give George H.W. his own spotlight in the future, so that's all the time we're going to spend on him here. The Rockefellers are the epitome of the nation's permanent establishment. Governors change, economics fluctuate, foreign alliances shift, the Rockefellers prevail. Walter Cronkite, CBS reports.
Trying to discover if in fact there is an American ruling class.
I'm afraid there is. I don't think it serves democracy well if that is true, but I think there is. The ruling class is the rich who really command our industry, our commerce, our finance, and those people are able to so manipulate our democracy that they really control the democracy, I feel.
Bill Clinton. The start of the Clinton presidency saw 100 plus CFR members obtain roles in Billy Boy's administration. CFR members were named ambassadors to Spain, Great Britain, Australia, Chile, Syria, South Africa, Russia, Romania, Japan, Korea, Mexico, Italy, India, France, Czech Republic, Poland, Nigeria, and the Philippines.
What the fuck was that?
Clinton himself is a CFR and Trilateral Commission member, Bilderberg attender, and Rhodes Scholar. Other Clinton administration members included Treasury Secretary Lloyd Benson, Bilderberg ex-CFR, Secretary of Health and Human Services Donna Shalalalala, CFR, Trilateral Commission, close friend of Hillary Clinton, Secretary of Defense Les Aspin, a socialist himself that picked pro-communist Morton Halperin as his top assistant. Halperin is a former ACLU director and right-hand man to Henry Kissinger during their time at the NSC together. Secretary of State Warren Christopher, Council on Foreign Relations. Secretary of Interior Bruce Babbitt, Council on Foreign Relations. Secretary of Housing and Urban Development Henry Cisneros, Council on Foreign Relations. Fuck me.
Any comments on the alleged allegation of your connection with Jeffrey Epstein? No.
George Bush.
After carefully examining the region, me and my cabinet agree that that area is definitely ripe for regime change.
All right.
But if I can be real about it,
Be real, son.
real,
Be real, son.
try to kill my father, man.
What?
And play that.
Say word, they tried to kill your father, son. That nigga tried to kill my father! Word to everything we love, we coming to see y'all, son.
The 2007 Bush cabinet included Dick Cheney, Condoleezza Rice, Elaine Chao, Robert M. Gates, Joshua B. Bolton, and Susan Schwab. All these motherfuckers are Council on Foreign Relations members. Baby Bush, like his father, will get further attention in the near future on this channel, so we're gonna leave him alone for now. U.S. Navy Judge Advocate General Admiral Chester Ward, a longtime CFR member, is quoted as saying, CFR, as such, does not write the platforms of both political parties or select their respective presidential candidates or control U.S. defense and foreign policies. But CFR members, as individuals, acting in concert with other individual CFR members, do.
Booyakasha!
Well, let's wrap it up there. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching. Please like, share, subscribe, or follow. No, seriously, if you've made it this far, help a brother out and do one of those things right now. Please and thank you. Catch me on the Broadcast Podcast. Follow me on X to interact with me personally. I follow back all accounts that keep it real. Stay tuned for part 3 of CFR, where we're going to take a look at some of the scenarios that unfolded with CFR members around them and how they influenced those scenarios. So, until then, like a fat kid in dodgeball, I'm out. Hit the outro.
Motherfucker, I'm ill.